live. Um, Not expecting much of a turnout for my very, very first live stream. I'm hoping that the audio is okay. So, look, if no one shows up, that's cool. It's going to be just me talking by myself into a camera, hoping that I didn't completely boomer out on the audio or anything. If anyone is watching in the chat, then, let me know if the audio is okay and everything like that. So, welcome. This is my very first live stream ever. And it's kind of an experiment, just like my whole channel has been an experiment so far. As of yesterday, I hit 50 subscribers, which is for a channel that's less than 2 months old, which I had absolutely no expectations for. That's really cool. Actually, I shouldn't say no expectations. I actively expected nothing. I didn't think my videos would get any views, and that was okay with me. I was just kind of doing this for fun, and everything's just been, like I said, kind of an experiment. I figured that while the channel's really tiny, then I would use that to figure out what I'm doing and see if I can make videos that people would actually want to watch that are good at all. And then my Theranos videos somehow have gotten like, I mean, we're not talking massive numbers, like I'm a very, very tiny channel, but from base, like relative to what I was expecting, the Theranos videos have like really taken off, gotten a lot of views, and I've gotten a lot of subscribers from those. And so thank you. And, this stream is basically for the subscribers. I imagine most people will watch it after the fact. If you're new to the channel, like, hey, we're gonna talk a lot about Theranos. We're gonna catch up on Theranos news today. But before we do that, I do want to talk a little bit about, who I am, what the channel's about, why I started the channel, and kind of where I see it going. Yeah, my name's Garrett. I'm a coder. I'm a professional software developer engineer. I learned to code when I was like 10, and I'm pushing 40 now, which is terrifying. But yeah, I have been a professional software developer for almost 25 years now, and I've never gotten burned out before until like the last like couple of years. And that's really weird for me because like I used to run a business for 15 years. I'm kind of a really hard worker. If I love doing something, it's not work for me. I will put in tons and tons of hours, and that's not really an issue. So the fact that I was starting to get down the last couple of years, it was really new for me, and I was thinking a lot about why that is. And I started kicking around this joke at work and with coworkers, etc., and which was that the more I make technology, the more I'm involved in making tech, the less and less I want to use it as an end user. And the unfortunate thing is that it turned out that wasn't a joke. I should say obviously the format of this stream is going to be way different from my normal videos. This is just kind of a chill stream. I'm just hanging out. There's no scripts. I'm going to say a lot of ums and have awkward pauses and stuff as we go on, and hopefully I'll get better at this with practice. Like I said, it's an experiment. So why don't I like using tech anymore? Why was I getting kind of burnt out on it? And there's a whole lot of reasons, but that's basically what turned into this channel. What inspired this channel. I realized it's more of like the quality of work that I've not been enjoying the last few years, more so than like the amount of work. The amount of work is fine. There's a lot of talk about burnout in the tech industry. It is a hard job. A lot of people, go into it for the money or I don't know, they have their own reasons, but then there's long hours and there's like, just business culture and race to market and all that stuff, and they burn out and they don't really enjoy it. For me, I really enjoy developing software and making tech, but what I'm making isn't really exciting me, and I'm seeing a lot of issues with the tech industry that are really kind of really bothering me. We're really racing to market. It's all about how do we get this next product out really quickly. There's not a lot of emphasis on security and privacy, and so when you see these new ransomware attacks that are coming out, you're hearing about this like almost a new one every single week. That shouldn't surprise you. Their security is not being treated with the priority that it should be at most of these companies. We're also hearing, about basically a social media mental health crisis, particularly with teenagers. The high school was a complete nightmare for me in the 90s. I can't imagine what teenagers go through these days with like Facebook and Twitter and social media and stuff like that. Basically your whole life is public now almost, even if you don't want it to be. And that's something that really concerns me. So there's this push in society to adopt more and more technology, particularly with cell phones and stuff. And if you don't want to own a cell phone, if you don't want to participate in that, you don't necessarily have a choice, or like you do, but it'll be really difficult to opt out of that. And that's something that really bothers me as well. And then of course, like I'm huge on free speech, and we're seeing, free speech under attack all across the internet. And that's really weird for me, because the big promise of the internet in the early days was that this was going to be like a free speech utopia. The internet is often hailed as the single greatest invention since the Gutenberg press, at least in terms of disseminating information. But the last year or so, we're hearing all this stuff about hate speech, about misinformation, about disinformation, and there's calls like, look, we can say that big tech and social media platforms are private companies. They can do what they want. I actually agree with that. I take that side. But then when the White House, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but Jen Psaki or something, when she's saying that the government is working with social media companies to put pressure on them to go after certain users who are spreading messages that they don't like, well, that suddenly, in my opinion, becomes a First Amendment issue. Like, government has absolutely no business, getting involved and putting pressure on companies to regulate speech. So I wonder truly how much is it Facebook and Twitter and these other tech companies that are taking proactive measures, of their own accord. I mean, there's a lot of people saying this is their ideology, this is their worldview coming to play. I wonder what's going on behind closed doors. Are there backroom meetings where governments, putting pressure on them to go after people based on speech? So that's another thing that motivated this channel, is that the internet was supposed to be like the free speech utopia, and the last couple of years it's really not. And then on a personal level, I find myself making the same wares over and over again at work. Like, it's all finance companies, it's commerce companies. I develop software that help people with like loan applications and stuff. I don't really want to write software that helps people get into debt, but that's really common. So basically, I'm not really enthusiastic about new tech that's being made. So yeah, the gimmick for the channel was tech guy who hates tech and wants to burn it all to the ground. And I'm experimenting with what that looks like. I told a friend at work all about this channel, and he's like, well, so tear it down. So I did this video where I literally set a cell phone on fire. Didn't get many views, and that's okay. I'm not complaining. I don't know what you guys are gonna like. I don't know what's gonna work. I'm still figuring that out. So yeah, this channel's probably going to evolve quite a bit over time, and we'll see how it goes. Like I said, most of the subscribers so far have come from the Theranos videos. So I definitely feel like I owe you guys a Theranos video, which is why tonight's stream, we're just going to catch up on Theranos news. I've got a lot of links to a lot of articles that I've been saving to make videos about, and I haven't gotten around to making videos about them. So I don't know that we're going to get through all of them tonight, but we'll definitely go through them. And yeah, I'm rambling quite a bit, and that's probably going to happen a lot on these live streams. Like I said, this is kind of a chill stream. It's, you know, if anyone wants to show up and chat, that would be awesome. If not, I'm just gonna ramble on like a fool by myself, and that's fine. And I don't know. Let's start reading some Theranos news before I bore you to death. So yeah, we'll start with this one. Holmes claimed Theranos could do more than 1,000 tests, and it did 12. I got a little bit excited when I saw the subtitle because I thought that Holmes herself had finally taken the stand. And then the first paragraph really disappointed me. So brace yourself. The subtitle says, "Jury hears first words from Elizabeth Holmes," and they're pretty damning. I'm just going to read it. These are fresh for me as well. I haven't read them yet. Hopefully you'll be as entertained as I am, or not. I don't know. We're trying this out. We'll see how it goes. The jury in Elizabeth Holmes' criminal trial heard from Theranos founder and former CEO for the first time yesterday. What she said, however, didn't come from the witness stand. Holmes hasn't been called to testify yet. And I wonder if she will be. I was just watching the Kyle Rittenhouse trial with, you know, the rest of the world, and he did take the stand, but all the lawyers who were giving commentary on it were saying that's a really bad idea. As a defense, you should let your lawyers handle your defense for you and don't take the stand. So I wonder if Holmes is going to take the stand, and if she does, we'll be watching and I'll be talking about it. Rather, the prosecution played interviews recorded by journalist Roger Parloff, who wrote a cover story about Holmes when he worked at Forbes magazine. Over the course of 10 hours of taped interviews, Holmes made a number of remarkable and damning statements. In one clip, Parloff asked her how many tests Theranos can perform. "I think we can say more than 1,000, Holmes said. Well, we know how that one turned out, didn't we? In another excerpt, the jury heard Holmes telling the reporter that the fact that we have a single device that can perform any test was a trade secret. The jury also heard Parloff asking Holmes whether Theranos could essentially replace Quest Diagnostics, one of the nation's largest medical laboratories. Quest could do some 600 some tests, Parloff pointed out to Holmes, including tissue biopsies. So even though Edison was hailed as a miracle device, it couldn't even match what was already available on the market, apparently. We can do all of those tests so we can provide data back to clinicians for the same tests, Holmes said after a brief hesitation. When asked why she hesitated and didn't say replaced, she replied, "We're processing the samples in different ways. Let's put it that way," assuring Parloff that Theranos data is still of the highest quality, and that should make us all laugh. Someone in the comments said that Elizabeth Holmes is guilty of having bad hair, and that made me laugh. Many of those statements were outright falsehoods, or more charitably, danced around the truth. In reality, Theranos couldn't perform more than 12 tests on its Edison devices, former lab associate Erica Chung told the jury earlier in the trial. Even then, the Edison analyzer could only run one type of test for one patient at a given time, Chung said when she took the stand in September. Holmes also shared with Parloff the doctored reports that sported various pharmaceutical company logos, including Pfizer. Yeah, there's an entire article on that one about Theranos basically like swiping logos and stuff just to add legitimacy to what they were selling to investors. And so we'll probably get to that a little bit later. So yeah, various pharmaceutical companies, including Pfizer, sharing Plow and GlaxoSmithKline. On the stand, Parloff confirmed that she never told him that the reports were produced by Theranos and hadn't been approved by these companies. Parloff also told the jury that Holmes never disclosed that most of their tests were performed using third-party devices, despite the fact that he had asked her that question directly. Article and correction. When Parloff's article was published in June 2014, it became part of Holmes' packet sent to Wu investors. It's easy to see why. In the article, Parloff described Theranos' finger prick method. To me, it felt more like a tap than a puncture, and he relayed the sheer number of tests that the company could do at a lower cost than competitors. Theranos tests can be performed on just a few drops of blood, or about 1/100th to 1/1000th of the amount that would ordinarily be required, Parloff wrote. And wouldn't have that been wonderful if they can do it? Of course, it was all just vision. It was hype. It was exactly that. Wouldn't it be cool if, with absolutely no plan for executing it? An extraordinarily potential boon to frequently tested hospital patients or cancer victims, the elderly, infants, children, the obese, those on anticoagulants, or simply anyone with an aversion to blood draws. For Theranos, the article was a marketing goldmine. The company even linked to it from its website. Yet, in July 2015, at a Theranos demonstration at a board member's law firm, Parloff noticed something odd. The company had set up two devices, one to run a potassium test, another to run an Ebola test. I was a little surprised that they needed two machines because I thought they could do everything, he told the court. And of course, there were signs all throughout Theranos' existence that what they were building was essentially vaporware and marketing pitch for something that they had not developed yet and could not develop. Months later, after the Wall Street Journal published its investigation into Theranos, Parloff went back to Holmes to ask her to clarify points made in the article. Specifically, he asked her how many tests Theranos could perform on its proprietary device as of late 2014. Keep in mind that Theranos was founded in 2003. So by 2014, they were already 11 years old and had already gotten like tons of investment capital and tons of interest. And of course, you would have expected that with 11 years of funding and development, that they would have something to show for it by that time, that they wouldn't be faking these investor demos. So as of late 2014, the date mentioned in the article, she responded 50, 60, maybe 70, we can get you that number. And that was kind of Holmes' modus operandi. You know, if she was asked for anything concrete, she'd be like, yeah, you know, roughly this, that, whatever. I'll get back to you on that. And then, of course, she never got back. Ultimately, he released a protracted correction in which he picked apart several claims Holmes made to him. And of course, uneven test results. And we already know a lot about this. The Edison devices, not just the Edison devices themselves, but the actual tests that were being run, because Theranos was playing this game of smoke and mirrors, and the Edison devices didn't work. There was just tons of inconsistency. Earlier in the day, the jury heard from Dr. Mark Burns and his patient Methel Ellsworth. Though Ellsworth's time on the stand was brief, testimony from Burns, who ordered blood tests for him with Theranos, was revealing. In the summer of 2015, the time of the tests, Ellsworth was a retired dentist who was about to embark on a 2-year mission trip to Asia. He had checked in with his doctor to ensure he was fit to travel. Burns ordered a prostate cancer screening with which Ellsworth had undergone before, and he recommended Theranos since the company's tests were cheaper than the competition. What followed sounds strikingly similar to another patient's experience. When the results came back, Ellsworth's prostate-specific antigen numbers were high, at 26.1, a potential sign of prostate cancer. 4 days later, Ellsworth took another test. This time the results were 1.71, which were similar to earlier pre-Theranos results and did not indicate the presence of cancer. I'm going to switch now to another article because speaking of prostate cancer, this is one that I I had wanted to do a full video on because it's funny. At least it's funny to. It's not funny, but it is. It's funny. Like it's really shitty that the Edison devices were giving people false positives and false negatives, and potentially dangerous that the Edison devices were giving false positives and false negatives. So I don't want to downplay that aspect of it. Um, but if you I don't know, I like to look at the humor in things as well, and I think that's healthy. And so if you take a step back and you um, am I only coming out of one side of the microphone? I am using a mono mic, and if that's a problem, then I need to figure out how to fix that. So thank you, um, that ferret gamer or feral gamer. Sorry, I've got old man boomer eyes, and my font size is small. So yeah, I need to figure out how to make that stereo, and I'm not. You know what? Maybe I should just switch to my really shit quality webcam mic and not use this. And then on another live stream for the next one, I will figure out how to make it stereo. Oh, I'm happy that I've actually got people watching. It says I've got one concurrent viewer, so the fact that there's a few people in the chat makes me a little bit happy. I'm going to kill this mic and use my webcam mic, and my webcam mic's gonna suck, but at least it should come out of both ears. All right, test. I was clipping a bit. Sorry if that killed your ears. Let me know if you can at least hear me better. I know the audio quality is going to be kind of shit because it's a webcam mic, but you know, if you can at least hear me out of both ears, that would be it should be an improvement. How is it? I think the lesson is do more testing. Okay, sweet. Thank you. And thank you for letting me know that it was a problem. I'll do more testing before my next live stream to get this to work in stereo. It's basically gonna have to take the mono and split it to two channels. I have no idea how to make it do that. Okay, so yeah, what I was saying is what Theranos was doing to their patients was not funny at all, and potentially dangerous. Um, but if you can detach yourself a little bit and see the humor in things, I thought that this one report was a little bit funny. Apparently, the Edison devices were telling women that they have prostate cancer, or at least that they have a biomarker that indicates prostate cancer. So, if you need any evidence whatsoever that the Edison devices didn't work, that Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos was completely full of shit, well, here it goes. I haven't read this article yet, just the headline. I saved it, and so let's go through it. So, Theranos tests detected prostate cancer marker in prostateless women. Holmes struggled to explain why tests found male biomarker in women. Well, maybe because it was all smoke and mirrors. Maybe because they didn't actually do anything. Um, Around 2016, Theranos' fourth lab director, oh God, how do we pronounce that? Kingshut Das. I'm just going to refer to him as Das from here on out. And if anyone knows how to pronounce that, I'm sorry for butchering it. So Das noticed a problem. He was analyzing data from the company's diagnostic devices when he saw results from tests from prostate-specific antigen, or PSA. PSA is used to detect prostate cancer in men, and except in rare cases, it's not present in women's blood, except here it was appearing in women's test results. Das took his PSA findings to CEO Elizabeth Holmes. Females should generally not have PSA detectable, Das told the jury in Holmes' criminal trial yesterday. Yet Holmes refused to believe that Theranos' proprietary devices could be at fault. She suggested that some of the patients whose blood was tested instead had a rare type of breast cancer. How would she know? Like, Holmes is not a doctor, and I highly doubt that she was reviewing their test results directly, even assuming she did have the qualifications to make any kind of diagnosis. And also, lab results are not going to diagnose this anyway. You see an indicator on a lab result, you need to send that to a specialist. And then the specialist digs in deeper, orders more tests if necessary, performs examinations. So the fact that Holmes would say that is pretty sick, in my opinion. Um, Pointing to an article or two. Yeah, great. So Holmes was an armchair doctor basically, and she was qualified to interpret the results from her shitty devices that didn't even work. An article or two that showed it was possible, Das recalled. Holmes' explanation, he told the jurors, seemed implausible. Even plausible or not, that doesn't matter. I mean, Holmes isn't qualified. She shouldn't be making any diagnosis or determinations. In fact, the ethical thing to do is to audit your devices and to figure out why these are reporting things that are seemingly inaccurate. Send the patient to a specialist, get it confirmed, get a not I almost said second opinion, get a first opinion, right? Get a doctor to confirm this. And basically, if the Edison devices were going to work, what you would want is you would want the Edison devices to be able to produce results that are consistent with traditional testing, right? That's how you're going to measure the reliability of these devices. And instead, what we're hearing here is that Holmes was just kind of dismissing inconsistencies. Yeah, they must. It's not that the Edison devices are just full of baloney. It's that we've got an anomaly with the patient. That's kind of disgusting, if you ask me. It was just one example of the many errors that Das encountered. He had been hired in March 2016, and when he first started, he thought the company was running tests on standard lab diagnostic equipment, not the company's own Edison or mini lab devices. He would soon discover that wasn't true. Immediate jeopardy. One of his primary tasks was responding to a devastating report the company received in January 2016 from the Federal Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS. The report, which followed a November 2015 inspection, contained the header "Condition Level Deficiencies, Immediate Jeopardy." As a result of the survey, it was determined that your facility is not in compliance with all of the conditions required for certification in the CLIA program, the report read. It was determined that the deficient practices of laboratory pose immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. No shit. I mean, because you're telling people that if you're telling people that they might have cancer, then you might be telling people who are showing signs of cancer that they don't have cancer. In any case, false positives or negatives can be dangerous to patient health. And this is why this is so important. As Das went through that report, a separate 121-page statement of 121 pages of statements of deficiencies, also produced by CMS and the company's own data, he reached a conclusion that called into question years of testing done on Theranos devices. I found these instruments to be unsuitable for clinical use, Das said in court. He ended up voiding every test Theranos had ever performed in its federally regulated lab, some 50,000 to 60,000 results from 2014 to 2015. I knew they had been rolled out to Walgreens, but I didn't realize that they had actually performed that many tests. At the time, Holmes told Das that the problem wasn't the instruments, but rather quality control and quality assurance. Das wasn't convinced. These instruments were not performing from the very beginning, he recalled telling Holmes. After the results were voided, Theranos never performed another test. Das continued to work for Theranos until he was laid off in 2018, shortly before the company was dissolved. Das admitted that Theranos never contacted patients whose test results were voided. Wonderful. So of 50 to 60,000 people, there were potentially many of people that were still going on unreliable test results. I hope by now they know and were informed. Don't don't treat those as valid. Go get actual real traditional tests. A third lab director finishes testimony. So yeah, I knew of actually, yeah, we've heard from three lab directors before. There was Adam Rosendorf, who had resigned, but then there were those two lab directors that I spoke about in my last video, that basically didn't even know of each other's existence. And one of them, which I think was Lynette Sawyer, that they're going to talk about here, she never even got to see a lab. And Das testimony followed the cross-examination of former Theranos lab director Lynette Sawyer by Holmes' defense attorneys and redirect by prosecution. Sawyer's position was temporary, and she resigned in June 2015. Her job mostly involved using DocuSign to approve standard operating procedures for lab tests. She never set foot in the lab, and she half-heartedly tried to fix the SOPs when she spotted problems by emailing her contact at the company. And yeah, this is what I talked about in my last video. So yeah, speaking of investors and defrauding investors, um, this one I thought was pretty interesting. Holmes' ex-boyfriend, who was a Theranos exec, bullied and ignored a $1.2 million investor. Jury hears more Theranos missteps from a frustrated... Not used to talking this much. Forgive me. I'll get better. Jury hears more Theranos missteps from a frustrated investor and former lab director. In 2016, Alan Eisenman invested more than $1 million in Theranos, a then promising medical diagnostic company founded by college. Yeah, we already know the story of how Theranos was founded. Holmes had told him that her company was talking with Morgan Stanley about an IPO in 12 to 18 months, and that the company would bring in $200 million in revenue by 2008. For years, Eisenman and Holmes were in frequent communication, including quarterly calls with other investors and one-on-one conversations. He was impressed that the company had contracts with a number of pharmaceutical companies, including Pfizer and Novartis, and believed in its mission. Yeah, everyone believed in Theranos' mission because it was a cool mission. The only problem was they didn't have a single person who knew how to pull it off. If you check out the HBO documentary, I think it was called The Inventor. They interview a lot of the former lab technicians and engineers and stuff who were working on the Edison devices, and a lot of them said that what Holmes was asking them to do violated the laws of physics. Like, it could not be done. It could never be done. They even spoke to a university professor of hers at Stanford that I don't remember her name or exactly what she did or what she taught, but I remember that she was involved in hooking a lot of young entrepreneurs who attended Stanford up with like investors and stuff. And, she took credit for making a lot of Silicon Valley billionaires. And she recalled that Holmes had approached her and asked her to help her the same way she had helped others. And this professor lady just said that Holmes' vision was absolutely ridiculous. Something about wanting to like wear a pack that would monitor your blood for infections and deliver and like automatically deliver a dose of antibiotics if it detected an infection. And of course, antibiotics are not potent. Like, you would have to carry a ridiculous amount of medicine on you, expensive medicine at all times. And then also, how is this detection going to work? How are you going to reliably detect an infection in real time? This is stuff that's straight out of science fiction. So yeah, I mean, the vision was good. Everyone believed in Theranos' mission. The problem was there was absolutely no way to pull it off. We don't have that technology yet, and the people that knew what they were doing, who were qualified, well, they kept getting dismissed. like either figuratively, like, oh, you just don't get our vision or whatever, but in some cases, like literally, like they would get demotions, they would start getting ignored, they wouldn't advance through the company, and so they were pushing out their qualified engineers, and pushing up their people who were the pure visionaries. And you really need like a symbiosis. You need a marriage there. I think that's why Apple was successful. I'm not a huge fan of Apple, but Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were quite the team in the 80s. And it was Steve Jobs who was the visionary, and Steve Wozniak who was the technical genius, and was able to write all of that early Apple code and develop the hardware and the machines and stuff. You need to work together, visionary and engineer, in order to be able to pull something off. And Theranos just kept pushing out their engineers. It's just pure vision with no execution. All you can produce if you do that is dreams. You're never going to produce anything that's real. You're just going to have dreams. All right, back to the article. Eisenman is a retired financial planner from Texas, and he took the stand yesterday in Holmes' criminal trial. Holmes is being charged with 10 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Eisenman's investment is one of the counts of wire fraud. For him, Theranos' shine tarnished in 2010 when communications from Holmes and Theranos dropped to zero, Eisenman said. He grew suspicious. There was no information coming from the company. To me, that's a sign of trouble. And it is. One of the things that everyone should look for when you're looking for work, especially in a profession, is look for a company that has maximum transparency. So when I'm job hunting as a software developer, as an engineer, I ask the company tons of questions about, how is the flow of communication from the leadership down throughout the company. And I'll ask the employees that are interviewing me, because they work for that company, what's your experience like working here? Do you trust the CEO? Do you trust the leadership? That's really, really important, because if we see this all the time, it can't just be in the tech industry. I work in the tech industry, so that's my bias. That's what I'm exposed to. But we see all these companies where, like, the executive, they want to keep a really tight seal on everything, especially in younger startups, because they don't want this, like, grand idea that they have to leak out and get poached by someone else. The thing is, 99% of the time, their ideas are not brilliant. They're not novel. They're not going to be the next, like, visionary revolutionary. Even Theranos, it was a grand dream, but was it a really outside the box dream? Like, the idea that, we can do medical tests based on a finger prick instead of, like, taking a large sample of blood, that's not a brilliant idea. The only reason we don't see it is because it can't be done. We haven't developed the technology. The idea itself isn't something that no one else is going to have, that's like genius, that's going to be a game changer. But you see this with tech companies all the time, especially younger startups, where the executives don't want to have all this open communication and dialogue because they're paranoid. They don't trust their employees, and they think that if word leaks about what they're up to, that some other company is going to poach their precious ideas and get to market first and steal everything from them. But that creates a very, very toxic work environments. You need an open dialogue between the leadership and between everyone who's working for the company. Otherwise, it's a horrible environment to work in. And in Theranos' case, it was a good indication that the company was completely full of shit and was never going to deliver on anything anyway. So Eisenman is a retired financial planner from Texas, and he took the stand yesterday in Holmes' criminal trial. Holmes is being charged with 10 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to... Yeah, I already read this, sorry. Yeah, okay. One investor's persistence. That didn't stop him from trying to get more detail. Eventually, Holmes replied that she couldn't give Eisenman the information he wanted. She offered to buy him out, saying that he would receive a greater than 5 times his initial investment. Eisenman replied with yet more questions, but Holmes never replied. Again, that was her modus operandi, always just kind of vague, brushing off, dismissals. Still, he persisted in asking for more information, emailing Holmes and Theranos chairman, only to be brushed off. Then in 2013, Theranos' tone changed. The company emailed him saying that it was rapidly scaling to establish a national footprint. That was the Walgreens thing. And that it was soliciting investments. Eisenman emailed Ramesh Sunny Balwani, the company's COO, saying he was thinking of investing another $1 million. Balwani quickly replied, saying that he was available to talk anytime. To Eisenman, the sudden openness was a complete change from Balwani's hostile and aggressive communications with him. And yeah, you'll notice that as soon as there's more money to be had, then, the gates open. The leadership will be very, very talkative. They're always interested in getting more funding, more injection from venture capitalists. It's when people who want it, it's when you want to see results that suddenly they get quiet and dismissive. Ultimately, Eisenman decided in 2013 to invest around $100,000 because as an early seed investor, he had a seat at the table and thought that Theranos had finally turned things around. He assumed his money would be used to scale up operations. After the 2013 investment, though, Eisenman grew frustrated again. He repeatedly asked for more information, and finally, Balwani asked him to stop emailing. In 2015, when Eisenman wanted to liquidate his shares, he emailed Holmes and Balwani with the subject line reading, "Please respond." Yeah, that's never a good strategy to just write in all caps, "Please respond," but it goes to show that they were ghosting him. And I guess you get pretty desperate when you've put in a lot of money and the people who are supposed to be accountable to you are not communicating. His note said, "It's really unfair for you to play this cat and mouse game with me. I can't make a rational decision to settle or hold my stock with the lack of info you've provided." Balwani replied one last time saying, "Your emails are insulting, full of inaccurate statements, and wasteful of our time. Our next response to this email and all your future emails will come from our counsel." That's pretty typical. These crooks will just, spin the table around, try and gaslight you, and make it sound like you're just making stuff up and making false allegations. And then like you get nowhere. I mean, Eisenman probably should have just lawyered up proactively himself and had his lawyers start to talk to Theranos. But as a former friend of theirs, I guess he was hoping that, he was hoping that he was talking to a human being, and that was his mistake. He was not. He was talking to people who were intent on defrauding, intent on taking his money without delivering anything in return. So there you go. Eisenman wasn't able to liquidate his shares and presumably lost his entire investment when the company dissolved in 2018. And that's that. I mean, Theranos went up to almost $10 billion in value on paper before dropping to like zero almost overnight when the Walgreens thing fell apart and the House of Cards fell down and everyone found out that they were just complete frauds. Let's take a quick look at more bad news, but I think that's a good segue into another article. The day in court. Yeah, I'm gonna pull up the other article. Yeah. So speaking of the House of Cards falling and people losing everything, angry Texan who lost $1.2 million Theranos investment lights up Holmes' trial. Theranos investor could have made 20 times. Why didn't he sell? Because everybody thought that Theranos was going to deliver on their vision and that the company would become the next big thing. It's easy in hindsight to look at that $10 billion investment and think, look, if only I had sold then, if only I had cashed out when they were almost at $10 billion. But yeah, of course the investors wanted to make money, but I don't know. When I invest my savings, I'm thinking more long term. I'm not if you're trying to play the stock market, then you're gambling. And a lot of people do that. Some people do it successfully, and that's okay. Um, but Theranos had this vision for something that was going to change the face of medicine. And so if I were a Theranos investor, I wouldn't have necessarily been looking to cash out just based on like a paper valuation, or cash out on an IPO. I wanted to be a part of something big, of something that was going to do a lot of good for the world. Not all investors, not all people that are putting their money into something are just looking for a quick cash grab. Of course, at the end of the day, you want your investment to grow. You're investing to make money, but that's the thing. I mean, why didn't he sell? Because he didn't realize yet that Theranos was a big fraud. And when it was revealed that it was a big fraud, of course, the everything came crashing down, and everybody lost their investment money overnight. And yeah, Tech Feral Gamer asks, so the man literally could have sued and didn't. Um, what I think he should have done is, I think instead of like emailing Holmes and Balwani with increasingly hostile tones, he should have clued in earlier that something was wrong, and he should have gotten a lawyer to give him advice on how to proceed with that. The lawyer could have contacted Theranos on his behalf and done it in a way that could have gotten at least a bit more conversations rolling. Maybe the threat of litigation would have come up. Maybe that would have been their play. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I just know what I would do. Like, I think, didn't the article say he had invested 1 million and then another 100 grand? So he's 1.1 million deep. With that much money on the line, if I didn't feel like if I didn't feel like the people that were accountable to me were being accountable to me, um, the smart thing to do in hindsight is to get a lawyer and have the lawyer start doing the talking for you. But of course, that's in the benefit of hindsight. And Eisenman had a previous relationship with Holmes, so I think that he probably felt like he was talking to friends. Um, what up writes, why is everyone so damn biased with this case? Yeah, okay, some things were fabricated. Let the woman explain her side. None of us were there to know for a fact that she was intentionally misled. Hope she walks. Hope she walks. Okay, that's interesting, because I'm actually kind of with you up until that last thing. I typically, and why am I supposed to care about some rich, greedy men? Well, you're not. I've no reason there. I'm not telling you that you have to care. I'm just giving my thoughts, giving my commentary. Um, in terms of bias, though, you do have a point. In a free society, you're innocent until proven guilty. Um, and and so Holmes will have her day in court. She is having her day in court right now, and and she shouldn't have to prove her innocence. Um, and typically in cases, I like to not have an opinion, and I like to wait and see how things play out, and I like the prosecution to make their case. Um, yeah, see you later, Tech Feral Gamer. This is gonna be up, so if you want to watch the rest of it later, I intend to post it. So like, thanks so much for joining and listening in. I mean, it's an experiment, and I'm glad that you liked it, and I hope that they just keep getting better from here. So yeah, take it easy. Have a good night. So yeah, look, you should be innocent until proven guilty. Holmes is having her day in court right now. The prosecution should have to prove her guilt. She shouldn't have to prove her innocence. I'm making a little bit of an exception myself here. There's a lot of evidence that the Edison devices were giving people false negative false negative. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. We're giving people false medical information, and that information can be dangerous. So if it turns out that Holmes can successfully defend herself in court, I know she shouldn't have to prove her innocence. I am biased. I totally admit that. But if she's found not guilty, I'll eat my hat, right? I do think she deserves a fair trial. And one thing that I regret with this case is that federal courts don't have televised proceedings, like a lot of state courts do. And it would have been really, really interesting for all of us to be able to watch some of the proceedings live. All we can go on are news reports, which are often biased as hell and spun in a particular way. Also, if you're new to my channel, you haven't seen some of my other videos, which is likely because my channel is very, very dinky at the moment. Um, my whole thing is I'm looking at the darker side of technology. I'm a lifelong tech nerd who's gotten kind of doom-pilled on the tech industry. My channel is deliberately negatively biased towards tech, but it's played up for exaggerated effect. Um, I'm putting out videos to be entertaining, to be informative, but they do have a spin. They do have a bias. I'm not hiding that. But I do want to acknowledge your point. I believe very strongly in a fair, free, open society where everybody is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And so that's what Holmes is doing. But at the same time, my channel is about the darker side of tech, so I am going to look at the evidence that is against Holmes, and that means that myself and my audience are absolutely going to have a bias that is looking very unfavorably towards Holmes in this. But we'll see until all the evidence is laid out, until she makes her defense, because I think her defense is just getting started. We've just heard from the prosecution so far. So we'll see what defense she puts up, and we'll see how convincing that defense is. Though again, I've said it like 10 times already. I'm sorry to repeat myself, but you would be absolutely right to say that we should presume innocence and have to prove guilt. So let's get back to the fun and see how evil Theranos was. Okay, so yeah, I was talking about like why didn't the greedy rich men sell? Because you hope that Theranos was going to actually make something worthwhile. You hoped that they were going to change the face of medicine. They didn't. It all fell apart. And so it's benefit of hindsight. On Monday, at the criminal trial of Elizabeth Holmes, Theranos investor Alan Eisenman walked into the courtroom and held aloft an envelope stuffed with his personal notes. He hadn't wanted to hand them over, but the defense had subpoenaed them. Here, take them, he seemed to be saying. It was just one of many theatrical moments Eisenman would deliver in a brief day of testimony in San Jose, California. So yeah, it looks like we're talking about the same guy. I don't know how much of this I'll read since we just read about Eisenman, but I'll keep reading because there might be some more interesting details. Eisenman invested around $1.2 million in the startup, only to see his money vanish when the company went belly up in 2018. His investment is behind one of the counts of wire fraud that Holmes is facing. But as the court heard, Eisenman had plenty of opportunity to cash out. His first chance was in 2010 when Holmes offered to pay him at least 5 times his initial investment to buy back his shares. And again, I mean, why would you? I mean, unless Holmes was being honest and saying, look, we don't have this yet. We had a promise. It looked more promising than it was. Turns out that we're not there. It's going to take a while. If you're getting uneasy about your investment, look, I'll buy you out. It's fine. Leave. You have to assume if he didn't take that, then she was kind of being wishy-washy and saying like, look, if you're unhappy, that's on you. That's your fault. You don't believe in our vision. Take the buyout and we'll part ways and screw you. I don't know, or I don't know. They had a prior relationship, so again, I have to assume that he felt like he was talking to a friend, working with a friend, dealing with friends, and dealing with people as human beings when they were really being shady. In 2015, he had 2 more chances. Eisenman spoke with people at Shares Post, a market for trading shares in private companies, who said he could probably sell for $14.75 a share, which would net him at least $20 million. Also in 2015, he was approached by Chris Boyles, the son of Theranos attorney and board director David Boyles, who offered to pay $15 per share. So look, the fact that he didn't take those offers, I mean, like the headline said, or the subtitle said, he could have made 20 times his investment, but he didn't. So I'm not saying you should feel bad for him or anything, but that goes to show that, he obviously wasn't in it just for the money, because he could have cashed out. Theranos had a vision, they had a promise, they had something that they were really selling people on that could have changed the face of medicine. And, that if I had the money, I mean, maybe I would have invested as well and, really bought into that mission and then, or that vision, well, vision and mission, and got and conned like everyone else. So yeah, we already heard about Eisenman, so I think I'll leave that article there and move on to something else. Let's see what we have. Okay, that was Texas accountant, ex-Holmes investor. Let's look at the Pfizer logo one, because we've talked about the investors for quite a bit. So let's look at this story. Theranos swiped logos from Pfizer and another pharma giant for fake reports. Investors tell jury that they believed pharma companies had validated the tech, and yeah, that's it. I mean, Holmes will put up her defense and say why this was justifiable, but you have to admit it doesn't look good. The media is often biased. They like to spin things, so maybe there's another side of the story, but if they're using big pharma logos on their reports to investors in order to make them seem legitimate, that looks shady AF. As Theranos burned through the cash, founder Elizabeth Holmes was apparently desperate to land a large investment from Walgreens. So desperate that she sent the drugstore's executives 2 fake pharma reports, the jury in Holmes' criminal trial learned yesterday. 2 fake pharma reports. A few weeks ago, the court heard how Holmes had sent Walgreens executives a report that featured a prominently placed Pfizer logo, but Pfizer hadn't authorized its use. Yesterday, the court heard that Holmes did it once more, sending reports that prominently featured the logo of Schering-Plough, the large pharmaceutical company that was acquired by Merck in 2009. Constance Cullen was director of Schering-Plough's bioanalytical lab in 2009 when her company tasked her with helping to evaluate medical diagnostic tests being developed by Theranos. The pharma company was interested in working with Theranos to develop custom diagnostic tests, and it had acquired 2 of the startup's proprietary devices to see whether they lived up to the promise. Cullen and other Schering-Plough scientists evaluated 3 different tests, for which Theranos charged them $279,000 for test materials. As part of the evaluation, Cullen and her colleagues met with Holmes and other Theranos employees at the company's Palo Alto headquarters. The Schering-Plough scientists came prepared with technical questions, but did not receive technical answers. I was dissatisfied, quite honestly, Cullen said. There was insufficient technical detail for us to be able to evaluate the technology. And that's what we've been hearing from people, is that anytime concrete data was requested, it was always hand waved off. There was always dismissal there, and essentially appeals to the vision. There were what I describe as cagey responses or attempts to redirect to other topics of discussion, she added. Cullen said that though there were other Theranos employees in the meeting, Holmes did nearly all of the talking. Almost exclusively, Ms. Holmes was the one answering the questions, irrespective of to whom the questions were being asked, she said. Theranos later sent Cullen a report that said Theranos technology has been shown to give accurate and precise results. Cullen told the court that she had not discussed that statement with Theranos, nor did she agree with it. In the spring of 2010, though, Holmes sent that report to Walgreens executives with some small but significant changes. The report now had the Schering-Plough logo at the top, and a key line had been tweaked. Now it said that Theranos diagnostic technology has been shown to give more accurate and precise results. Note the addition of the word more. Colin confirmed for the court that no one at her company approved that statement. So, I mean, I guess that's where the fraud allegation comes in. I know it's widely understood that Theranos defrauded their investors. Um, I'm not a lawyer or a legal expert, so I'm not entirely sure like what the wire fraud component of this is. But if you're using someone else's brand logo on your reports to make it sound like that company gave their stamp of approval on those reports, I mean, what do you call that if not fraudulent? You know, I wonder if Pfizer and the pharma companies would even have like a defamation suit against them, because that could tarnish their reputation. If they're signing off on these devices, that's them essentially saying that these devices work. Well, if they don't work and it's proven that they don't work, well, then someone could look at those companies and say, you know, what's the deal? Like you lied to us. So Theranos is essentially implicating other companies in their lies. Missed revenue, missed revenue projections. Cullen's testimony followed the defense's cross-examination of Lisa Peterson, who led private equity investments for the DeVos family office. In his questioning, Holmes attorney Lance Wade made the case that Peterson and the DeVos family were sophisticated investors. He showed the jury that the family office signed a document acknowledging that Theranos was a relatively new company and confirmed that Peterson knew that the startup was highly speculative and involved substantial risks. In redirect, Assistant U.S. Attorney Robert Leach raised the issue of Theranos' rosy financial projections, which the company gave to Peterson in late 2014. The startup had forecast 140 million in revenue in 2014 and 990 million in 2015. Peterson said that if Theranos had made 1/3 that of what it had predicted for 2015, she would have been pleased, since it would have showed signs of progress. In reality, the company made nothing in 2014 and under 500,000 in 2015. So for a company that was valued at almost $10 billion, they generated less than $500,000 in revenue in the year of 2015. Had she expected that the revenue would be zero in 2014? No, Peterson said. Well, of course not. I mean, Theranos was big buzz in the early 2010s, and so everyone thought that they were going to make a fortune. What they were telling us wasn't true, she said. And Wade later objected, pointing out that Theranos had defended revenue of 169 million that year. So yeah, maybe the defense will have reports that'll show otherwise. Peterson also said that the DeVos family investment relied on a few documents and claims, one of which was the Theranos report featuring the unauthorized Pfizer logo, which Holmes had emailed to investors. There's a couple of things that we really relied on, Peterson said, and one of those things was that third-party pharmaceutical companies and the government were using the analyzer in the field. Okay, so they were relying on the pharmaceutical companies, like their sign off and the fact that the government was using the analyzer. I don't know. I'll see what else I've got. I might end up wrapping it up here. We've been going for an hour. Like I said, this is my very first live stream ever. Like, this is my first channel. I've uploaded videos to YouTube before, but you know, maybe one or two on a channel before I kind of, you know, got bored and gave up. This is the first one that I've seen any kind of like growth on. I mean, we're less than 2 months into it. As of today, we have 51 subscribers. I want to thank you all, every single one who subscribed. And this stream was for you. Like I said, at least half of you have come through the Theranos videos. Not 100%, and probably more than half. And I felt like I really owed you guys another Theranos video, so I figured I'd do this whole stream just about Theranos. And you know, I'll do more live streams in the future. they're gonna have this kind of more chill, format, not scripted, gonna fumble over my words a lot, lots of awkward pauses and ums. But I'm hoping, people as the channel grows will show up and we can chat. And the 51 of you that have subscribed as of today, if this channel keeps growing, you're the early adopters, you're the early subscribers, the first people to get here and to see the potential of this channel. And that makes you really special to me, and I'm really grateful. And I had no expectations that anyone would care about my videos. Some videos people care about more than others. I'm figuring that out. I'm gonna keep experimenting, and we'll see where this goes. It's probably going to evolve quite a bit. I'm gonna, keep like I did one video about a computer virus called Stuxnet, and I thought this might be a part of a series of computer viruses through history, because this channel is all about the dark side of tech. Didn't get many views, and that's fine, and I'm not complaining. But I'm not going to give up on those because I think that might have an audience. Um, so yeah, what I am a little bit worried about is once the Theranos trial is over, obviously that news is going to dry up. We will see the trial of Balwani in the spring. But I doubt that's going to get the interest that the Elizabeth Holmes trial has gotten. If only the federal prosecutors had thought of us, they could have done the Balwani trial first, and then we would have gotten really ramped up and hyped up for the Elizabeth Holmes one. But I think, interest in the Theranos case is going to drop off after the trial's over, no matter what the verdict is. And I really hope that there's content on this channel that still continues to interest you if you came here through the Theranos videos. And I'm not going to stop with the Theranos videos. I'll keep covering them until the trial wraps up. And yeah, we've been going for over an hour. This was a fun experiment, and I'm glad people showed up. I'm glad I got to do a little bit of chatting, and you told me about the earlier audio hiccups. I'll try and get this microphone working in stereo for people who wear headphones, so they don't, get a sore ear just listening to the one. And yeah, thank you so much to the people that have subscribed. We're not even 2 months old yet. I had no expectations that anyone would care about the videos, and to see a little bit of interest and to see people subscribing and liking, it is really, really heartwarming, and it means a lot to me. So thank you. And thanks for showing up tonight, and I hope to see you lots more in the future. Have a good night.